So yesterday I remembered, as I was writing this talk, I remembered this book by Alan Cohen, and you may have heard of it. It's called Why Your Life Sucks. And I'm not saying your life sucks, but I'm saying that there's some wisdom in here that it's good to just try on some of these ideas. There's so many. If you don't have this book, it's a really fun one. There's like a wisdom reading on each page, and you can kind of open it up to different pages, whatever suits you. But chapter one begins with these words: Your life sucks because you give your power away. And I read on, you give your power away when you make someone or something outside of you more important than what is inside of you. You give your power away when you put people on a pedestal, like we did with our parents. And now that we're, past that, it's interesting to think about who we might put on a pedestal that we don't need to. You give your power away when you imitate instead of creating, something to think about. You give your power away when you don't listen to your intuition. You give your power away when you let others choose for you. You give your power away when you think your destiny depends upon something outside of you. And a couple more. You give your power away when you starve your soul. That's an interesting one. In what ways might you be starving your soul? Um, that's an interesting question. And this last one's kind of funny. You give your power away when you treat your body like an unloved pet. So, um, so moving beyond the Alan Cohen book, we are conditioned by society to seek lesser power, the lesser of the two powers, and not the greater of those two powers that I call the real power. And this lesser power is all about the ego. The lesser power is always hungry. It's never satiated. It's always reacting and judging and criticizing. It it's ironic that when you pursue this egoic lesser power, you are like running around like a hamster in a hamster wheel, and it actually ends up draining your power. You're tired because you're pursuing the power. How ironic that is. Um, and I think that we all have to go through some ego battles in our lives. Those tests come across all the time, micro ego tests and major long ego tests, or journeys. To me, one of the my I was a part of a group when I was 14 years old that you could only be in until you were 21. It was a traveling group that toured the country and was competitive, and the groups would compete against each other. We would send 128 kids and a 18 wheeler and a couple of staff vans, and we would sleep on gym floors every night. But one of the things that happened at the international competition that happened each year was there would be a solo competition, and I would compete in that solo competition. And that was the most important thing to me. It was more important than the group competition. It was more important than anything at the time. I wanted to be the best drummer. I wanted to be the fastest drummer. I dreamed of it. The rest of the group would have like a free day in Montreal, and I would stay back in the gym and drum all day long. So many days like that. I wasn't smelling the roses. And so finally in 1986, I got to this international competition and I took second place. And one might think, yay, I took second place out of 100 contestants that year, competitors. Was I happy? No, no, because the ego can't be satiated. It's just a bottomless pit. It can't be fed. So I went on to pursue other egoic pursuits within that world. But the ego game is an empty game. You never win. You never win. Now, I'm not talking about having a healthy ego and healthy self-esteem. That's a good thing, but egoic pursuits. I mean, think about, I don't know, we can all think of maybe about some personalities in the media, actors, models, Kim Kardashian. I didn't say that. Politicians, people that are out there about, and it's about ego. It's about ego, and they're modeling this for the rest of the world. And I think that politicians, the same thing, CEOs, the same thing. Uh, there must be a better, higher power out there. And hey, there is. It's why we're sitting in this room. That power is the spiritual power. That power is the real power. It's the absolute and unchangeable power that we just need to bring our awareness to, tap into, and nurture as an expression in our lives. Um, it's like electricity. We can decide not to use it. We can misuse it. It's like water. We can it's there. It's a force, and we can just not take advantage of it. But I think that with our thoughts, this is the reason why this is called New Thought, we are directing it in subtle ways, even if we don't want to direct it or we're not consciously directing it. We're using this power. But this power is where all prayer power comes from. This power is where all transformation comes from. This power is what I believe that we as a species need to evolve to. We need to evolve out of the egoic power pursuits and into the whatever you want to call it. It's a higher, to us, it's spirituality, but it's a more humanistic approach. It's the real power. And I believe that we will go extinct as a species if we don't discover that power. I mean, look at the warring nations. Look at you know, I originally wrote led by small minds, right? Look at the leaders of the world. Look at the kings and would-be kings and wannabe kings. Uh, the lesser power is alive in this world, and it's killing people. It's killing people. I don't want to go through all the examples of how it's killing people, but you can probably think of some. But somehow this lesser power has created and added on to global crises. It certainly has created many wars. You know, when you think about what the wars are about, um, instead of peace and discussion and dialogue and diplomacy, we're at war. I mean, the world is at war. What is I'm saying? You know, with each other. George Clooney recently did a Broadway play called uh, Good Night and Good Luck. It was about the McCarthy era, but in many of his interviews about that Broadway play, he was saying that, you know, those were really, really bad times, really, really bad times. Some people thought this was the worst of times. And we've been through other times, really bad times too, as a world and as a nation. But he said, we do eventually find our better angels. We do eventually find our better angels. And I think one of the ways that we do that is we find a way to get out of the power of ownership, power of possession, power of ego, and get into the power of, it's really power of love. So, as I said on Wednesday night, this lesser power is about attention, drama, comparison, competition, having things, getting things. It's about, you know, us creating more. You know, nowadays, if you're a millionaire, they say you're not doing too well. And there are so many, was it centa millionaires and billionaires, more billionaires. Right here in the Bay Area, we've got almost 100 billionaires. So, and not all of them are being philanthropic with their money. In fact, the ones that have the most money seem to be the least philanthropic. So, um, that's because the lesser power is involved, the ego is involved. They don't want to give away money so they can take themselves down on the ladder of the ranking of who's the richest. That's my take on the thing. So, like I said on Wednesday night, on one side you have the power over something. And on the other side, you have the power of something, the power of the one power and the one presence, right? The power of our source, the power of God. Um, and on one side, you have power that's about force. On the other side, you have power that's about flow and radiance and things that are soft, right? That don't feel like power, but they are power. They are power. We can radiate that power. That's not about force. That's not about opposition. That's not about violence. That's the smaller power. And think about this in a relationship. Now, this can be with family, friends, significant others. That lesser power is about triangulation. It's about subverting and keeping score. It's about resentment. It's about wanting to be right at all costs. It's about talking behind people's back. But in a relationship, when we use the real power, it doesn't feel like power because we want to be the first one to say, I'm sorry. We want to, we don't need to always prove that we were right. Even if we know we were right in a particular argument, we're like, wait a minute. Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? And there can be two truths. There can be their truth and there can be my truth. So I don't need to prove that I'm right. So that's just an example, I think, of the higher power being used. And here's one. This is a quote I found last night on social media. It says, power is not walking into a room and thinking you're better than everyone. It's walking into a room and not even needing to compare because you don't want to compare, because you know that everyone in this room, regardless of extrovert, introvert, doctor versus janitor, person with a PhD versus high school dropout, regardless of all that, you realize that everyone has something unique and amazing going on in their soul. They're all equal at the top of this service. That's equality. That's equality. Us noticing and embracing our diversity and not saying that you must look like that to be successful in my world or be accepted in my circle, right? So that's where inclusion comes in. We accept all. So um, I want to remind us that we say at every service there is only one power, one presence active in the universe and in my life. And that is the first unity principle. God is everywhere. And if God is everywhere, it leads to the second principle. God is within us. Divinity is within us. So we get to access all these things called God qualities. We get to access abundance. We get to access prosperity and success and love and healing and power and wisdom and intelligence. I mean, everything, 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 beauty, creation, joy. And the third principle is that we have the power to co-create our lives. And it is the real power because it is our unlimited source and supply. So it is not the ego trying to get things, even though they say that that's, something that we manifestors can do that. But those are just the early stages of manifestation. Later on, we want the universe to express itself as us, fully tapped into the larger power. That's what almost every talk by every speaker is in every church. It's tapping into the power of our divinity. So I'll wrap up the last few minutes of this talk by saying, how do we activate it? How do we regain it? How do we energize it? Remember it? How do we take our power back? Soul retrieval, how do we do all that? And it reminds me of something that Michael Beck was said when he did a workshop for us in 2022. And he said, you know something? He said, most of all spiritual work is letting go. Most of all spiritual work is letting go. And that makes me think of this image of this big block of stone, and Michelangelo is standing behind that block of stone. And Michelangelo says, I'm not creating David. I'm just chipping away everything that is not David. I'm chipping away everything that is not David to reveal this magnificence. So isn't it true with our spiritual work there is a magnificence, a completed idea within you, as Michael Beckwith would say, that needs to unfold. And if most spiritual work is letting go, we're letting go of those tape recordings. We're letting go of those habits. We're letting go of those negative thoughts. We're letting go the resentments. We're letting go shame, because shame's not a spiritual practice. And when we let go, we are flowering. We are manifesting this more energized, more radiant being that is our magnificent selves. And that's why we're here doing this work, because it works. So that's number one, the work of letting go. That's how we tap into this power. I'll name a couple more. This one's a big one. And the answer is prayer, the power of prayer, because prayer is focused thought, and thought is creative energy. It's, we're new thought. Change your thinking and change your life. Norman Vincent Peale said, whatever your problem, no matter how difficult, you can release spiritual power sufficient to solve your problem. How? The secret is pray. The secret is pray. So if you need prayer support, Denise is available for prayer support. I'm available for prayer support. We want to take advantage of this spiritual technology called prayer. And along that vein, I will be doing a workshop in a couple of months called The Power of Prayer. It's so important. It's spiritual technology that works. There's a little plug for the workshop. So a final few words on power, everyone. Real power, I come back to maybe what happened yesterday in the world. Real power is nonviolence. It may not, it doesn't feel like this, and it may even feel wimpy at times, because if you watch the movie Gandhi, which I highly recommend, someone said to Gandhi, what must we be passive? Why must we be passive? And he said, I've never advocated for passive anything. Our resistance must be active and provocative. I've never advocated for passive anything. Our resistance must be active and provocative. MLK, saying that MLK had very strict rules of engagement. And that's why the protests worked, because they were not going to get themselves into trouble by accidentally being violent during those protests. They had very specific rules of engagement of how they would do that. But it was the the power of nonviolence is not the power of force. It's not the power of force. It's the opposite. And especially when you try to love the person that you're protesting against. That is amazing. The image of someone putting a flower into the tip of someone's gun, right? The image of police officers yesterday taking a knee with the protesters. That's the power of love. So I'll finish up by saying real power is also allyship for someone who is weaker than you, or is disadvantaged, or is being, I can't think of the word for it, is being treated unfairly, is being persecuted. Allyship with that person. So if we've got it good, we can lend a helping hand. We can pray for that person at a minimum. And it doesn't feel like, see, these uses of power don't feel like a power trip. That's a litmus test. So I'll end by reading just one sentence from something that Michael Beckwith wrote in the book called The Secret. He wrote this: regardless of what has happened to you in your life, regardless of how young or how old you think you might be, there is a power within you that's greater than the world. Let it begin to emerge. Let it take over your life. It will feed you. It will clothe you. It will guide you, protect you, direct you. It will sustain your very existence if you let it. So just let it. I am complete, and so it is.